All right. So Paul, question for you. What's the aim of your channel? What are you trying to accomplish with it?
So basically, right, I mean, if you look at history, when we get into the idea of the state and public service, I mean, there's really two routes. Either we're going to compel the servants to serve the public, right, to serve man and woman based on what's true and what's right and what's codified in the Constitution, or we're going to go to war in the streets, right? And when I say we, I don't necessarily mean me myself because I'm going to go off grid and create community, but I mean just historically, right, that this is a timeline that we're on and it kind of goes one way or the other. So at this time, my aim is to just bring the public servants back under their of what they claim they're here to do, right? To uphold rights and to protect those rights, and they swear an oath to protect our rights, and anything that causes us loss, injury, or harm is illegitimate. So I'm doing that up until a point where either it changes the dynamic and they start to understand what their function is, or until we go to the next level, right? But all the while, I'll be creating community, networking with folks, and trying to get on the land, self-sustainable and kind of independent of a system and a public that doesn't seem to respect themselves or the truth.
So let me ask this, okay? Let me go to James first because I know he's going to have an answer, or Johnny. What is the scariest situation you were ever in when you were out there on the streets recording? Is there something that pops out in your mind?
While recording or before?
Well, either way. I think while you were recording, while you were in the role of James Freeman, what was the scariest thing that ever happened? Did you ever have any close calls? You ever get shot at? You ever get beaten? Anything?
Yeah, there was one. It's a video on my channel called "Cop Tries to Jeff Winehouse Me." Johnny 5-0 was actually with me minutes before that happened, and him and Bell for Freedom, we had all been out making some videos together. We went back to the cars. We were headed home. He told me, "Hey, James, don't go and do this by yourself. These people are psychopaths out here. So go back to your, I had my RV out there because I was traveling. He says, go back to your trailer and stay there, man. These guys are crazy. They want to kill somebody." I was like, yeah, whatever. Minutes later, I see a cop in a parking lot in a Walmart with his lights on. So I walk over to there to record him, and he starts coming at me, and he's looking at me, and he goes, "Is that a gun? Is that a gun?" You know how cops like to verbally, it's the whole thing, like, stop resisting, even though you're not resisting. Yeah. Is that a gun? Even though he knows there's not a gun. And so when he said those words, I was like, oh shit, I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to, set that stage, for the record, into the camera. Oh, I think he has a gun, as an excuse to shoot me. So, he never even pulled his gun out. But in that moment, I knew if I reach for what he's looking at, which was a radio in my pocket, which most people would, a lot of people would naturally do that. No, hey, look, that's not a gun. See, look at it. And you pull it out and you got a bullet in your face. So he never pulled out his firearm. But at the same time, that felt pretty real, that he was trying to escalate it to that point.
The name of the video that James was talking about is called "Cop Tries to Jeff Winehouse Me." I just dropped that in the chat room for you guys so you can take a look at it.
So what about you, Johnny? Go ahead.
Morro Bay. That's it.
What did you say?
Morro Bay. So Nasty Nathaniel went up to Morro Bay. He lives up around that area. That's probably about 4 hours up the coast from Los Angeles, and in this little sleepy little town. And Nasty Nathaniel had gone into the tiny little police lobby where you could fit maybe 4 people total, and filmed inside there. And then he was thrown to the ground and twisted his arm, and they detained him, and they put him in the back of a squad car for 20 minutes or whatever. So we went up, the two of us, a couple of days later, and there were already yes, James did get catfished that day by the police. And I've talked to James about that. James was in a Walmart parking lot, so they turned on their cherries and berries. And I mean, James was like, and as would any of us. And because there was no call, if you actually break down James's interaction and that woman that was totally in on it as well. That was, supposedly, I mean, the cop was looking at like her tire tread or something, as if, you know, there was a call for service. So I totally believe, and I would say that that's the number two. Actually, that might even be number one, because the what happens in, well, we saw it firsthand, was the police called up the local militia that are not deputized, and they all showed up in their pickup trucks. And yeah, and that was before. That was when James and I were at the just the city hall, and it got dark really quickly, and you know, they were following us for a while, and it was not good. But Morro Bay was just a bunch of bootlickers that got out of hand and started calling again the same sort of thing of like the local militia, like, we got a bunch of cop haters here, you know, and rally the troops. And I always tell people, like, I think everybody has a little bit of like a spidey sense or a psychic sense. So when you're on a scene and you're looking around and you're just going, as soon as the police leave, I'm leaving. Yeah, you know,
because these guys are going to start saying, you got a pretty mouth.
Yeah, no, it just, so there was an incident. I was doing a cop watch last Saturday night or whatever, and there was this guy that comes up to me. He's like, who the hell are you? Are you media? You know, and I was like, we're live. That's all I told him. And the cop, the LAPD, said he has the right to be here and film, which, interestingly enough, has been that's their immediate go-to, which is progress. But yeah, just and also that the same thing with Morro Bay happened in Washington City, Utah, is that that mob mentality that starts at a low simmer and builds and builds and builds, and then, you know, you're being dragged by a pickup truck by your ankle by a chain, you know.
Yeah. And nobody's been in that situation. It's a different type of feeling when these people feel like they've gotten the police officers okay. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah,
like
absolutely. The police are behind us. And if you don't think that they have the medical examiner in on it, so they can say, oh, Mr. Olson died of a heart attack, you know, I mean, you're crazy. If you think that everybody's not in on this at that government level, in that their own little fiefdom going on there, you are insane.
It's a big club and you ain't in it.
Yep. George Carlin.
Hey, Johnny, real quick, is that Morro Bay, California, creepiest city ever? Is that the video you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to drop that link for everybody in the chat room so you can take a look at that for Johnny's
recut. It's about an hour and change, and we were gang stalked, and
yeah, that was scary. And I don't know that this one was scary, but it was memorable. Was the San Bernardino Police Library? Was that it, Johnny?
Santa Barbara. That's where I got arrested.
Santa Barbara.
I got body slammed. Crime of the century, filming inside a public library.
Yeah. Well, the one good thing about that is I don't think he makes bread anymore. If he does, he really stuck it out, because he was getting calls all over the place. And what I'm speaking of is the guy, and you know, I shouldn't say because it's ongoing litigation. Anyways, what about you, Lackluster? What situations?
I don't have any street stories. I can tell you all about when Haji shot at me when I was a bootlegger, but I don't have any.
No, but wait, hold on. What about the Chicago Sun-Times calling you? I know.
That's gagged. Actually, somebody in the chat's asking me about that. But that whole thing's gagged. Okay, I can't talk about it. I have to pay a lot of money if I talk about it.
Yeah. Well, so we'll avoid that.
But it's over, and I'm very happy about it. So
yeah. So you don't see that you got any scary situations, just being people threatening you for the stories you're telling or anything like that?
Well, I guess I won't talk about the outcome of it, but yeah, it was scary. The Chicago Tribune, actually, they called me up and they were like, "Hey, how do you feel about being sued by a Chicago police officer?" Like, whoa. Yeah. And at that point, like, my channel was just starting, you know. So but luckily some some dude hit me up online and represented me for
George
real
Russell?
cheap because I had no idea what to do.
And we figured that all out in a second, Lackluster. It took us
Oh,
like
yeah.
45 seconds being on the phone together to figure out exactly what was going on, and it was
Yeah.
mischievous to say the best on their end. Okay, what about you, High Impact Logs? Any scary situations for saying the wrong thing? Because you take on a lot of national politics. You take on a lot of world politics that I don't think the rest of us do as much. Have you ever been scared? Has anybody ever said anything to you? I'm trying to make you a mod. I cannot make you a mod. I don't know how. Is it because I'm in Streamlabs?
That's all right. I think you have to do it through the back end of YouTube, but I mean, it's not a big deal. I can only tell you that one of the first things that really opened my eyes, because what started me on this, I have to give credit to Ron Paul, because one of the things that really started me on the road to actually G. Edward Griffin. I read a book called The Creature from Jekyll Island. If you've never read that book, it's a real eye opener on who actually controls the world system. And I'm sure Rothschild said, "Give me control over a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." So if you have an oligarchy of an elite few who control the purse strings of the value of every dollar that you earn, you're talking about some significant power that is very difficult to overcome unless you can get a whole bunch of people aligned. But I got on board with this whole thing, just doing videos for Ron Paul. I was just into liberty. I was under the delusion that this is the land of the free, home of the brave, and gosh doggone it, we need to make sure that we secure our liberty. So I was super naive. And in a sense, I have a lot of that naivety still in me, because I try to believe the best in people and am constantly let down. And I want to go up to a law enforcer and get them in their minds out of their uniform, step aside from their authoritarianism, and take an honest look at all of us as human beings. And then, maybe grab the smelling salts of reality. But what really drove it home for me was an incident where me and my family, I had my girls, I have three girls, and two of them were armed. And I was armed, because we always walk around armed. And we were in Missouri. It was a constitutional carry state. We stopped for lunch. We just happened to pull into a Walmart. We were going to the deli. My daughters went to the Subway. I went right to go to the deli. Unbeknownst to me, somebody had called the cops on my daughters who had firearms. They're totally unassuming, cute little girls with guns that look like they mean no harm. So by the time I go to the deli and get my chicken nuggets or whatever they were, and was already confronted by the manager of Walmart saying, "Hey, it's not illegal to have firearms in here, but just to let you know, you're really freaking people out. Could you just kind of, leave?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going to buy my chicken McNuggets and I'll go. I don't want to freak anybody out." So as I check out and I go past the Subway, I see this whole SWAT team, AR-15 in hand. This one guy's looking all wild-eyed. I hit the record. That's the first time I ever recorded. That was my first and Second Amendment audit. Well, they had their guns drawn on my daughters, and their friends were armed. They had some girlfriends that were armed. And I'm like, what the frick is going on here? And I had a little bit of knowledge. I can't remember whose video it was. Maybe it was James Freeman's video, somebody's video about, am I being detained or am I free to go? I knew a couple little, quips to ask the guy. It's like, okay, if you're detaining me, what crime have I committed? And this cop was being super ugly. I ended up giving this guy my ID. But at that moment that I handed this guy my ID, I was thinking, we're not free. This is all illusory. This isn't land of the free, home of the brave. This is land of the fee, home of the slave. I can't even drive down the road unless I beg the government for a permission slip to drive. Got to have insurance. If you want to hunt a deer, you got to get permission from the government. And if you don't get permission from the government and they catch you not being, legalized, it's basically the government's job is to take away your liberty or what liberty you think they have and then sell it back to people who are willing to buy it back and be that stupid. So at that moment, my eyes opened and I was like, oh, I'm not free. This is just a perception of freedom. And I got to rewire my thinking. So that's what set me on the road. And that was the smelling salt of reality that I needed to kind of kick myself into overdrive.
Yeah. What about you, Paul, Unsolved? Was there a particular moment you could point to in which it was extremely scary, where you were nervous?
I mean, I've definitely had a bunch of different encounters. I've been threatened. I've had hands put on me. I've been arrested a bunch of times. But I try to focus on the positive because I will say, right, it's easy to lapse into this place where we feel powerless and victimized and like this is all a lost cause. And I've noticed that as the environment starts to get hotter and people's own self-interest start to get affected, people start to wake up more, right? So I've had equally as many, if not more, instances with public servants where they tell me, you know what, you're right. We need to change our behavior. And I've seen them actually change their behavior. And even the video with me on my YouTube on the side of the road, you can see a genuine care and understanding and a unification, right? So I try to come from that place to be positive, right? And I guess you could say optimistic, even though again it's kind of realistic because I've seen both sides of it. And then again, we know what's there. We know the darkness that's there. We know where we're at, where it's going. And I just try not to focus on that as much. I know it, but I don't try to focus on it, and I don't try to feel disempowered and victimized because each one of us has a voice, and we have an energy and an influence, and we can bring ourselves into these situations and change the minds and hearts of other people, especially in the time we're in where everyone's being forced to give up their property rights and their rights to their person and take these masks and vaccines and all the rest. So people are listening, they're ready to be led to a degree, and we have to step up as the leaders, right? And we can't believe, I just feel we can't believe that it's a lost cause.
Now, for me, it's never been the police that have scared me. That's never been the case. But I went to Baltimore on Memorial Day weekend with Chuck Bronson, and the first call we got, I want to say it was 2000. I'm sorry, 2020. And the first call we got was like 33 shots fired. And we were on the outskirts of Main Street, so we had to sneak into the neighborhood part. And we got in there. And if you're not familiar with Baltimore, they don't have any front lawn. So you're walking down the sidewalk, and it's Memorial Day weekend, so everybody's out, everybody's grilling, and the people, while you're walking down the sidewalk, the people are on the stairs. And if they're on like the first stair, they're right in your ear. If they're on the second stair, they're a little bit above your head. And I look down and I see two sheets in the street, and I'm like, oh no, because that's the worst situation you could be in. That and a domestic, because now you look like you're profiting off somebody else's pain. You're not there to, don't let them search your car. You're not there to give advice. You're just there to profit off someone's pain. And we're the only white people there. So the chant starts going, get out of here, honky, blah, blah, blah. And I just looked around and I felt like I was in a Coliseum. And we all know if you got a camera in your hand, the cops aren't helping you. And we really can't record any of this anyway. Well, are we going to record the dead bodies underneath the sheets? Like, this is a lose-lose. Like, we got to sneak back out of here. But we didn't. Chuck likes stuff like that. But yeah, that was definitely the scariest for me. And there's something about like being in Baltimore. If I was in Chicago, I would have felt a lot safer for whatever reason. It's not like all these people know I'm from Chicago, but it's just that innate quality that I'm from here and I've been around these places that I feel more comfortable. But Baltimore ain't nothing to play with. If they ask you what's the scariest city, and people just say Chicago or Detroit, and they downplay Baltimore, Baltimore is one scary place.